Let's share this screen right quick. Oh. Okay. So first of all, Ichiamo, greetings, Irase, for everybody joining in with us. So of course, we typically have our AKYISAN Ancestral Religious Reversion Conference around this time. Every year, this is our 5th annual. Because of this, so-called virus and so forth, we wanted to do it online. We didn't want to, miss this opportunity. We just moved through the Fefeo Bere, which is the spring equinox, as it's called in Akhan, and so forth. Fefel means to sprout or come forward. Fefel also means beautiful, and Bere means time, so it's the quote-unquote Fefel, beautiful time, and so forth. We just moved into this upswing, the warm cycle aspect of the year, and so forth. So we always have our AKYISAN Ancestral Religious Reversion Conference during our Apo observance, and our Apo observance goes from March 12th to March 24th or March 13th through the 25th, depending on the year. But we always have it in the midst of that, on the weekend that's in the midst of that 13-day observance. So for those who are unfamiliar, let's pull up this document right quick just so you can check this out. So when you go on the website, I'll make sure you can see this. What you'll find is that, so the Akhan term, etchi, means back, and sign means to return. So AKYISAN means to return back. What we're talking about is reversion. We don't talk about ancestral religion or religious conversion. You only engage in converting people if you're forcing them to embrace something that naturally or normally they would not embrace. We deal with AKYISAN, which is dealing with returning back to our original pristine state, our original pristine culture that we've inherited intergenerationally and transcarnationally for thousands of years. So when we talk about reversion, we don't have to talk people into or persuade people to embrace their tradition. We just have to revert back to our original pristine state. So AKYISAN is the operationalizing in a revolutionary, resolutionary fashion of Afro-Akani, or African ancestral religion. Those traditions that we preserved in our blood circles for tens of thousands of years, including our forced migration into the Western Hemisphere, during the period of the Musuo Kessie, which means the great perversity, the enslavement era. That's the term we use in our Akhan tradition. Musuo means disaster, calamity, misfortune, negative period, and so forth. And Kessie means great, so the great misfortune or the great disordered period, Musuo Kessie, during that period. We were forced into the Western Hemisphere. However, we maintained our ancestral religious practices. So those of us who maintained our ancestral religious practices are those who waged war against the whites and their offspring and forced the end of enslavement in the Western Hemisphere. Whether we talk about the Hoodoo Wars of Nana Yao, Okunfo Yao, so-called Nat Turner, Okunfo Kwabena, Denmark Vesey, Nana Abena, Araminta, Harriet Tubman, and numerous others. We also have the Gullah Wars. So the Ovambo people and other Gullah people and so forth coming together to wage war against the United States Army in Florida and so forth. So when they call these the Seminole Wars, they're actually the Gullah Wars. It was Afro-Akani people waging war against the United States Army and so forth. And those series of wars led to the Civil War, which eventually our people joined that effort as well to force the end of enslavement. So it was our incessant warfare against the whites and our offspring under the power and guidance of ancestral religion that allowed us first and foremost to escape into sovereign territories where we would escape into forests, woods, swamps, and so forth, other parts of the country, establish independent settlements where we were raising, crops and so forth, curing ourselves, defending ourselves, like in Dismal Swamp in Virginia, North Carolina, a number of different places, also in Florida and Mississippi and Alabama, all over the places wherever we were. We waged war against the whites and our offspring, freed ourselves from enslavement, established independent settlements, and moved forward to be independent intergenerationally. Then we would also raid plantations, wage war against the plantation owners and so forth, kill them, free our people, and bring them to the free settlement. But then we also directly engaged the United States Army, which eventually forced the Civil War to come into being. So those who maintained ancestral religious practice are those who are responsible for our people being free and us being free right now. If our people did not engage that process, the whites and our offspring wouldn't have had that fear. They would have gladly continued the enslavement process up into this moment. But we began to kill them under the direction and power of our Nanonoman Samanfo, ancestresses and ancestors, and the Abosom, the divinities, the forces in nature that are connected to our blood circles. So when we talk about AKYISAN, it's ancestral religious reversion, purifying ourselves in spirit, purifying ourselves in body, purifying ourselves communally as Afro-Kani people so we can move forward towards the Amma Ancestral nation building restoration process. So at AKYISAN, and you see here, Echi in Akhan means back, San means to return, but this is not just an Akhan term. So as you can see here on the screen, Chi means to be behind someone, to follow, march back, and so forth, to turn back, but then sign in the Medusa, the hieroglyphs of ancient Kemet means to return, turn back, or return as well. So AKYISAN in Akhan means exactly the same thing as it does in ancient Khani Kemet because the language is descendant and the culture, of course, is descendant and so forth. So we focus in AKYISAN on the ancestral religious practices we preserved in our blood circles in North America. So we talk about Akhan ancestral religion in North America, which is the Hoodoo tradition, Yoruba ancestral religion in North America, which is the Juju tradition, Ewe and Fon ancestral religion in North America, which is the Voodoo tradition, Wanga, which is the Ovambo tradition, and Gangan, which is the Fang tradition out of Gabon and Cameroon and so forth. We have the Gola people and the Kisi people in the areas of Sierra Leone and so forth, and Liberia. That becomes the Gullah and Geechee tradition. We have the Greek tradition, which is the Bambara tradition, other Mindi-speaking people and so forth. So those traditions we maintained in our blood circles are those that we return to. We are not dependent on anyone outside of our blood circles, our direct spirit genetic blood circles for our ancestral religious practice. We maintained intact our priesthoods and priestesshoods in North America. Akhan priests and priestesses, the Akhan, the Hoodoo man, Hoodoo woman, that is the priest class, priestess class, maintained intact in North America. The Juju man and Juju woman, that's the priesthood, priestesshood, maintained intact amongst the Yoruba people in North America. The same is true of the Voodoo man, Voodoo woman, Wanga man, Wanga woman, and so forth. The various traditions, we maintained our priesthoods and priestesshoods and every aspect of our culture intact. It is only there for us to return to. We cannot be legitimized or authentic in ancestral religious practice by trying to imitate those who are on the continent in their contemporary expression of ancestral religion, or those in Central America, South America, the Caribbean, and so forth. We have interactions with our people all over the world. We have diplomatic relations, but you're not engaged in authentic religious practice by imitating the contemporary expression of the Yoruba tradition in Nigeria, or the Akhan tradition in Ghana, and so forth. When we were forced from West and Central and South Africa, and some North and East and so forth, hundreds of years ago, the manner in which we practice ancestral religion was fossilized in our bones and blood, and that's key, because that was a time stamp on us. When we arrived in the Western Hemisphere, the manner in which we practice ancestral religion at that moment was time stamped within us. And that tradition is what we pass down intergenerationally and transcarnationally through successive incarnations, through rebirth, through specific clans. So those are the traditions. The way they were practiced hundreds of years ago is what we pass down here. Now, what has happened since we left the continent, we were not involved in that. Whatever corruptions have manifested over the past 300 years and manifested in the tradition, the fabric of the traditions on the continent, we were not involved in that. We brought the pristine tradition with us, and this is what we passed down, and this is hoodoo, this is juju, this is wanga, this is voodoo, this is ngangain, this is gree, this is gola and kisi, galangichi, and so forth, and this is what we are returning to. So I want to check to see if there are any, make sure people are trying to get in. Okay. And somebody just posted in the chat room that apparently Dr. Laila Africa made his transition today. Somebody just posted that in the chat room. I didn't see that information. So I did see somebody post something, but I didn't pay attention to the post. So,
yeah.
Okay. So, and in fact, so I met Laila Africa a number of years ago. We were on panels together in the past, like in North Carolina and so forth. So very intelligent brother, very, you know, a great sense of humor, if anybody been around him before. So a lot of information. African Holistic Health was one of those seminal works that, you know, transformed the minds of our people back. You know, that was one of the few books out written by a Black person talking about holistic health. That one, as well as, you know, Queen Afua's book back in the day. So, so yes, this is the first we're hearing of it just now. So, so I want to bring Sister Wakili in. So, Wakili Oyinola, she's going to talk about immunity and the Ori. And we really appreciate Wakili participating, hooking us up.
Am I starting this?
Yep. So what's up?
Okay, what's up, everybody? I wanted to say thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on the call today for a number of reasons. This is a profound time for us, so I'm excited about being here to be able to talk to and engage everyone in getting our mind frame for the next time space that we're in, or the time space we're in right now. And I did want to say rest in power to Dr. Africa. I just found out about it. I was on a call prior to this one, and actually another Zoom meeting, and we found out together. So I was in the middle. It was very profound because I actually was in the middle of quoting some information from his Melanin, What Makes Black People Black book. And the sister chimed in with the information in the news. So still kind of in shock about it all, but definitely wanted to invite all of the energy and opportunity we have in just participating in the dynamic transmission that's probably happening now. Okay, so I wanted to open it up with, we are doing this presentation, and I hope my technology is working with me because I have not shared successfully a PowerPoint on Zoom. So hopefully I'm able to pull my PowerPoint up so it can help me to stay grounded, because I come from a patch. My grandmother was a quilter. I come from a patchwork thought process, meaning pieces come in and I may seem to be non-linear at times. And so PowerPoint sometimes help me in staying practical and logical for everyone on the call. But again, this presentation is about the ORI and immunity. And I said I wanted to start it off with a affirmation that I created some time ago. Give me just a second, I'm pulling it. Okay, so I will go through this day, remembering my hemlines I made from air, each whisper model in flight. The grace of the ancestors connects me directly to Mother Earth and births Kudichagalia or self-determination. My passion and enthusiasm sparks the courage and pure intention behind each light ray expressed in the marketplace. In the marketplace, water gets no enemy, but purifies and superconducts life force from moisture to thunderstorms. The expansion of myself is a gift built on my ancestors' legacy and passed to my descendants. Breathing deep, I will embody this moment, refusing to worry about the size of the task. And with that said, it is, let's see if it will let me just pull this PowerPoint up. Bear with me, y'all. Oh. Let me know if when y'all can see it.
Oh, I can see it.
Okay, hold on one second. I don't think it's showing you. It's showing you peppers, right?
Right.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Are you seeing a PowerPoint? Are you seeing a
I can see it, but your sound was kind of, okay, say it again.
Oh, I was saying, can you hear me?
When the screen was up, the sound was kind of distorted, but.
Uh-oh.
But I can see it though.
Oh, okay, good. Uh-oh, I'm going too far in. Oh. Okay, good. So, can you still hear me though?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. So as we know, this presentation is about immunity and the Ori. It will discuss the ancestral art of elemental remedies. We'll highlight the Ori's role in immunity transmission and optimal wellness. So here, I would like to first talk about the Ori, which in Yoruba is the spirit head, or in short, in plain, the head. It's the consciousness where you're taking in all of your information and your sensory. So if you're clear, the Ori being the head, your eyes, which you see through, are located on the head. The ears, which you hear from, the nose, the sense of smell, taste through the mouth, and then all of your senses basically are housed in your Ori. So because of that, it governs your experience or the way you internalize information coming from those senses. And in Yoruba, there's a saying, your Ori first. So before you start to consult the different deities, before you start to deal with the ancestors, it's important that you center yourself first and make sure that your Ori, or your head, or your consciousness is present and also without answers before you go consult. Because if anybody understands that we are already the makeup of the all in terms of our lineage and our ancestors and the different deities, the Orisha, the Neteru, the different deities that we're experiencing and consulting, we pretty much embody all of that through the Ori and memory. And so with that said, it's important to every day wake up with the understanding that you already have the answers that you're seeking. And as we talk about immunity, that's going to be completely important, because here you'll see that I spelled the word immunity in a way that helps us to see the two word segments. And so M being no or not of, and then unity. The conversation we're having today is not going to be specifically around the so-called virus that we are asked to navigate as a nation right now, but basically as the whole concept of viruses, or the viral energy. And so M being not in unity, let's kind of address that first. I think it's important. When you have immunity, you can look at this in several different ways, but when you have immunity, basically it is your ability not to unify with, in this case, if we're talking about the virus, with the particular virus that's being, I would say, the campaign that's out. There's a huge campaign that's being broadcast around a specific virus right now. We have the ability through our Ori to disunify, or to not become unified with that particular campaign, if in fact we are strong and oriented in what our purpose is and what we've come here to do. So if we know that we are naturally a people of connectedness to the earth and centered in that, we'll have the opportunity to expand our awareness and our consciousness, as opposed to contracting. And so contracting creates disease and imbalance. And in order to not create that contraction, we have to be able to disregard or not unify with a particular program that goes against our life force. And so I just wanted to bring that up as we navigate the slides ahead, because understanding your Ori and its ability to either accept or deny information is going to be important when we are creating the transmission of immunity. So I'm going to move on. Here I have ways that we can have of immunity transmission. So one Ori being having an Ori-centered lifestyle, and that is basically knowing who you are, what you came to do, what your sole purpose is, how you're going to navigate this particular marketplace in order to fully express your natural talent and what you came here to do. So if you're constantly focused on this new campaign that's out around fear, this fear-based campaign, it's going to steal from the life force, which if your Ori attaches to that particular campaign, then you will find yourself being a co-creator in that particular experience. So Africans have the dynamic ability to either bond with or reject And you have to be careful because melanin is it's a superconductor, and it basically is a natural bonding agent. So you have to go in your head and assign it to what you want to bond with and co-create. And so with that said, ancestral rituals are very important. When you first wake up in the morning, if you will go through the motions of first acknowledging that you're Ori first. It is you who determines how you experience what's going to be navigated throughout the day. So with that said, we definitely want to get in alignment with the lineage and the ancestors to be grounded and oriented and rooted in what our function is. I also have here the sunshine is important. I know that there's a huge campaign on staying in the house, staying away from people, you know, getting away from this, not getting enough sun, basically is what that's yielding in fresh air. And we definitely thrive from the sun. We all know that. So we have also as a immunity transmission, proper rest. Some of us, you know, we don't understand how dynamic that is. Exercise, movement, reduction of stress, drinking plenty of water, also having a multivitamin, having a clean colon. I put that on there because it's important to have your body system clean and clear so that you can pick up on the transmissions and information that you're receiving from your ancestors as the internal guidance system that you have. And with a colon that's impacted with toxins, it's definitely tougher to hear messages. So when your colon is impacted, there's parasites that are apparent in the colon. If we understand that parasites create cravings, we also understand that those cravings are basically a transmission to your neurotransmitters or your ORI, for so to speak, if you want to bring it back to that, on what it wants you to put in your body. So it's sending messages. The parasites will become the controllers of your messaging. So if you're craving sugar, and I thought it was interesting, but I had an experience, but if you're craving sugar, and you're taking in sugar is one of the main things that will compromise the immune system. And I say that to say a lot of times when you're cold, if you find yourself eating a whole lot of sweets, it's a good indication that you have parasites that need to be removed. And once you remove those parasites, it will give you a more direct communication to your ancestors and also to your natural talents. It will align you with your natural talents and function as opposed to being controlled by the parasites, so to speak. So moving forward, if we're speaking about the campaign that's happening, call it a campaign because you know they got the patent on it, etc. But the brainwave entrainment, or basically synchronization or neural entrainment, and this is from Wikipedia, is the hypothesize, and they tend to put hypothesize to kind of disclaim whether to place value on stuff, but basically it's saying that it is the capacity of the brain to naturally synchronize its brain waves frequency with the rhythm of periodic external stimuli, most commonly auditory, visual, or tactile. It's important to know that the sense of smell is the strongest in producing memory and emotions. Now, why do I bring this up? I bring this up because you may find that you're not even thinking about the so-called coronavirus, okay? And with that, you're constantly being reminded of it, and it's kind of hard to keep yourself separate from this mass campaign. And the reason for that is because whenever you are picking up the frequency of the collective conscious, meaning if everybody is running around here constantly washing their hands, constantly not touching their face, and I'm not saying that we should not be touching our face, or that we should not be washing our hands and taking those particular precautions, but I am saying that if you're if you're in a space where people are doing that constantly, then you're also going to find yourself being reminded that this is something that you should be preoccupying yourself with. And so I was wondering, one time I was asking someone, I was like, okay, so how many times do you need to wash your hands to avoid the coronavirus? And it came to me that really, it's really only one time that you need to wash your hands. And that's actually when you come in contact, if you come in contact with it. So we could be in the busyness of washing our hands, completely taking ourselves away from the focus, which is your natural talent expression, what you came here to do. And you can find yourself preoccupied with this. And it's an activity that's not necessarily effective if you have not had the opportunity, or if you have not taken the time to get your Ori on board with, I'm just not going to contract this. This is not a part of my destiny. This is not a part of the divine order, or basically it's not something that I'm going to be involved with. So because we're so powerful and we co-create constantly, we have to be careful about taking this information in, and not necessarily having a dynamic connection to actually what we're here to do. So here, I have an African proverb up that says, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So this is the space where I ask people who, and the reason I say this is, if you're so busy being preoccupied, then you're taken away from things like understanding who you are, what you came here to do. Sometimes it's useful to know, what have you forgotten that you already know? Because again, the Ori is a portal for you to go back into your memory past this lifetime and pull in what you've forgotten. And so understanding who you are, what you came here to do, how you're going to accomplishing those things, how we're going to shift if in fact we do need to start moving our things to an online vehicle so that we can continue to thrive and communicate with each other. It's important to have these things in mind and to be dynamically working on these things as we navigate this time space, because we really have a lot of time to reorient. And this is almost a gift to us, as far as I'm concerned. It's a gift to us to have us to slow down and actually tap into the opportunity for recreation and rebirth, and understanding how we're going to participate in this marketplace outside of, some people they were occupying their jobs every day. Now we have to take the time out to create a schedule so that we can we can avoid feeling depressed or avoid feeling like stagnant energy, which is what happens when you're being asked to separate yourself and now start communicating via via devices, etc. And so at this point, I want to bring up water, because I did say we would talk about some elemental things, and water, which holds memory. We are mostly water inside our bodies. There's reservoirs of protection, rivers of love, seas of electricity, oceans of energy, and springs of life force. Water is the first medicine. If you're going to be immune, you are going to have to drink water constantly. They say half your body weight in ounces. And there's a lot of theories around how much water you're supposed to drink. But if you have these basic symptoms that they're, which are ridiculous, because it's like these symptoms can be from anything, and they're having us focus on these small symptoms, which is what's kind of making people, which can show up at any time. You can be dehydrated and experience shortness of breath. You can experience coughing from dehydration, etc. There's a lot of different things that you can experience from those, from just being dehydrated. So understanding the importance of water is definitely something that I want to encourage us to do, and not only to use water internally to flush out the body system, but to also use water in taking spiritual baths. Spiritual baths are very important. They help you to release energy that you have picked up on. Water definitely will clear out any stored energy around you. We pour libation as access to ancestors, and also to deities, and we also tutu, and that's just the motion, the ritual of putting water on the ori, so that you can have the clarity and freshness of that water provides. So please, if anything, you walk away, understand you could put all of the herbs in the world in your body. And if you don't have enough water to facilitate them, you're not going to benefit from them. So water is one of those things that you want to put in large quantities, and allow yourself to constantly go to the bathroom. Some people won't drink water because they feel like, oh, I have to keep going to the bathroom, but that's actually a good thing, because you're constantly filtering. And it's important to know that. So I wanted to stop there and see anybody any questions, any comments, anything they want to add.
And you can
presented so far.
You can also post something in the chat room. I mean, if a question or a comment in the chat room.
Oh yeah, okay. Oh, here I am. Was I pausing that big old smile?
Right. No, it's good.
You saw my face like. Could you see me the whole time I was talking?
Yeah, but you were on top, like the small screen.
Oh Lord, I didn't even know y'all could see me.
Oh yeah, of course.
Oh goodness.
Okay.
Okay, so did anybody have, I see a couple of things. Okay, so is this the chat? Oh, that was already there.
Right.
Okay, so I guess there's nothing there. Let's move forward. Okay. Okay. So here we have the element of earth. And because we always want our blood to be clean and pure, because that's also a communication portal. These are, can you guys see this? Can you see this screen?
Yeah, I can see.
Okay. We have here the different herbs that are supportive in purifying and strengthening the blood. So dandelion, which I realized today is also known as the priestess. It's called lion's tooth. A lot of these herbs have different names, but they also call dandelion lion's tooth and the priest crown. The priest, is it the priest? Yeah, the priest crown. So I was like, wow, it's interesting that we have so much dandelion at our disposal. We've been taught that it's a weed, and that and the reason we've been taught that it's a weed is because it steals all the nutrients and all the good stuff from all the other plants that are there. So basically, it's filled with nutrients. It's filled with and it will strengthen your blood system. And so that's something that you definitely want to put in. Paul Darko is one of my favorites as well. So if you're purifying your blood and keeping your system strengthened, then you will definitely have more immunity when it comes to navigating this time space. So with these herbs, I would suggest that you make a large portion of it. This is the proper way to prepare herbs. You will do one first I would like to say, if it's a bark or a root or a berry, you want to bring that to a boil, not just steeping it, because that's how you're going to extract the proper elements from that particular plant. So if it's a bark, those are hard substances: bark, berries, roots. Those you want to boil. But if it's like a leaf or a flower, and I guess I'm gonna put here, I have dandelion. I would like for it to be dandelion root. Uh-oh. Way through. It's not what I'm trying to do. Okay, so I would like for it to be dandelion root that we are focused on. So then again, if it's a flower, a leaf, or a light bark, like Paul d'Arco, if you get Paul d'Arco, it's pretty light. It's like shaved down, that you can steep. And if you're going to steep it, you're going to cover it up 5 to 10 minutes. and let it sit before you consume it. So typically you will use 1 teaspoon up to a tablespoon per cup of each herb. If you want to make a mixture, it's okay. You can use all of the herbs and make a mixture, a blend, I should say. And just put equal parts in the bag, shake it up, like equal parts of, if you're going to make a bag of it, then you can put like a 1/4 cup of dandelion, a 1/4 cup of echinacea, powderarco, chaparral, and go on, do all of them, and then shake it up in a bag, and then from there you can do 1 teaspoon. So it'll be a blend of them all. But sometimes using a single herb is more effective, and you would of course do this through trial and error on your own system. So that's something that I want to offer. So we talked about water, we talked about earth, and also the stones that are going to be very effective now time, our bloodstone, or the crystals, our bloodstone, and also shungite. And bloodstone, they work on all the vital organs, as well as shungite, and shungite is carbon-based. So these are 2 stones that I would recommend in terms of purifying and staying immune now time. Okay. And moving forward with air being the I didn't find picture air. I was like, oh, let me just put a dandelion in the wind. So air is associated with intellect, and also it is the breath. So incorporating some breathing exercises in your daily regimen will help you to center yourself enough to be in tune with the transmissions from the ancestral realm. So in order for you to reach that trance state, you want to facilitate a breathing pattern. A lot of times for me, fire breaths are very helpful in creating that trance-like state so that you can receive the transmissions that are necessary for navigating our time. And you're going to find that right now, a lot of information is coming through that will assist you. You might start off asking about the virus, but I'm telling you, the messages that are coming through right now are specifically focused on what did you come here to do? What is your purpose? What is your inspiration and your life force? So focusing on what you are here to do and your purpose will take you out of the contracted awareness of, trying to be immune from a virus or worrying about if you've done enough to be immune, but step you into it, the expanded awareness, which, daily when I wake up in the morning, I put my hands on my ovary and I say, walk me into the expansion of my consciousness. Ovary, open the way for me to participate in the fullness of my expression. And it's important to talk to your ovary when you first wake up, because no blessing can be yielded without the consent of your ovary. So if you don't feel like you've sacrificed enough, so you're asking for, I need this, I need that, let's not forget to ask for what we need to fulfill our mission, because that's very important. But you're feeling like, oh, I'm not getting the things that I need in order to navigate now time so that I can express myself fully. The reason being is that subconsciously, your Ori may have a contract with self-sacrifice. So that means that you don't feel like you've sacrificed enough in order to receive the blessings that you're asking for. So you inadvertently, you are causing yourself to have the experience of more sacrifice. Okay. Sometimes it's just about slowing down and making space for divinity to come through, and knowing, which is also a part of the head, knowing that you're going to achieve and be supported in what you're doing, because when you're in alignment with divine order and your contract is being fulfilled, then things should feel seamless. There should be a flow. So I just wanted to add that that's the importance of the intellect. So I'm going on, and I told you I do that, but I really wanted to talk about the air elements, and in terms of transformation, change. Here you might associate Oya, who basically is like the guardian of cemeteries or death. And so you die sometimes so that you can be rebirthed. And so surrendering to that personal, some people might be afraid of this, but surrendering to your commitment and things that you have really, really been focusing on that no longer supports where you're going. So you have to mourn your old self, and you might want to use the air element, the wind, and deep breathing for transformation. So that is what I have to add there. I have such a hard time, y'all. Talk. I'm like, okay, I'm talking into this machine. When my ancient self shows up, I'm like, who am I talking to? So is there any stop? Is there anything that anybody wants to add, ask, or share? I encourage you to, because that's how I communicate best.
So it was interesting you said the mourning your old self, or mourning that old approach. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Okay, so specifically, talk a little bit about mourning your old self. If you are finding, some people may not have to mourn their old selves. Let me start by saying that. But if you are finding yourself hitting a ceiling, constantly hitting a ceiling, you set out your goals, you know what you want to achieve, you are doing everything it takes to get yourself, you quote unquote, you feel like you're doing everything it takes to align yourself with your divine function and purpose, and you keep hitting the ceiling. Sometimes there are steps that we need to take in order to release the contract, so to speak, with self-sacrifice. And so if your old self is self-sacrificial, meaning that you take care of everyone else before you take care of yourself, to a point of putting yourself in a strained experience, then the root chakra might be out of alignment. And that means that you're basically not getting enough sleep, you're not getting enough vitamins, you're not eating properly, not enough water, not enough movement, intentional movement. You might be getting in and out of a car, not walking, not exercising, etc. Then simply making sure that you do those things daily will help you to renew, refresh, and restore. So I'm speaking to renewal and refreshment because we tend to, and I'm saying you may have to mourn your old self that was not committed for making sure that you were, that you could have dynamic energy and life force. So now we're given the opportunity to do those things daily without jumping up and running out to work. I mean, because we were so preoccupied with all of these different things. And it's really, we're being asked to mourn our old way of, and I hate to say this, but navigating the marketplace. And so, I mean, I'm not sure if that answered your question, but that's what I have to offer.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, it's a lot of people who are, I mean, you're making that point that a lot of people are, just the way you expressed it, the contract with self-sacrifice that's become a burden for people. Even when people come to us for divination and things like that, it turns out that that's like a major issue.
Oh, yeah. Self-sacrifice. And then we pretend like we can't take care of ourselves. So self-care is the opposite of self-sacrifice. And so if we want to be, if we want to have more energy in navigating this particular marketplace and understanding why we're here and having a clear transmission so that we can broadcast out that natural talent, then we have to do those very simple things. And you'll be surprised, because I can probably ask, okay, type in the comment section, I mean the chat. Do you take a multivitamin daily? Yes or no? You know I ask this every single time.
All right.
Every time I see people. And that's for everybody. No. Type in, do you take a yes or no, if you take a multivitamin daily?
We got one yes. Oh.
I was going to say everybody else being quiet because they don't. Not every day. Okay, so here's the challenge. The challenge is to, okay, I know a lot of us, we vegan and we getting our vitamins and minerals from our food, but what happens when you're consuming food that has not been harvested properly and out of season, in fact, or before the plants yield their potential? So then we end up something as simple as taking a multivitamin could go in and give us the vitamins and minerals that we need to renew on a daily basis. So you do understand that your body is using fuel every single day. And if you have any, what people say in the chat? Yes, we got no. Okay, so let me just say this. For the next 21 days, I'm just going to say 21. Hopefully it'll be a habit by then. I need everybody to take a multivitamin. You're going to experience a serious shift in your life force energy. Okay. A lot of us are attributing our, how can I say, if you're feeling empty, or if you're feeling like you some of the stuff we say is negative energy that we're experiencing. We think people are giving us negative energy. It's us being deficient. Okay. So if you take a multivitamin, you will find yourself being less porous. And when I say less porous, I mean you're less prone to attack from forces outside of yourself. If you have less, if you have more dynamic energy in terms of putting in the things that sustain. Because you do realize that we're mostly earth, air, water, and fire. So with that said, we have to keep being in constant exchange with those things. And so you get a new liver every 6 weeks. A lot of us don't know that. We're like, okay, so why do we have, you get a new liver every 6 weeks, your stomach lining changes every 5 days. You basically get a new, everything renews itself within a certain period of time. So with that understanding, you want to be able to assist the renewal process. Now, we got some people that have chronic imbalances. Now, these chronic imbalances are happening, one, because we're not giving our bodies what it needs to renew itself, but also because of contracts that you have with your ori. So if you have emotional pattern that you're experiencing every single day. So for instance, if you have anger, okay, and you are facilitating your entire life or filtering your expression through anger, then you're going to compromise your liver. Okay, your liver is going to be compromised. There's no way around it. And so with that said, you have to be able to restore your liver by giving your liver what it needs. And dandelion is a very good herb for liver restoration. Somebody said, if I'm eating plenty of nuts, vegetables, fruits, will I still need multivitamins? Yes. That's just my advice. And that's because, say you get an orange that's been harvested at the wrong time and it's been sprayed with chemicals. And some people, I don't want to assume that people know, some people are getting GMO oranges that don't even have seeds in them and feeling content because it's an orange. You know, you go to Whole Foods is full of GMOs. You feel like, oh, Whole Foods is going to help, but no. So if you're growing your own fruits and vegetables, then it's possible that you'll be okay without a multi. But you have to make sure that you're getting a large enough array, meaning all the colors. So you need these big salads with every single color in it. Not only once a day, but 2 to 3 times a day in large amounts. You probably should be juicing, and sometimes they say juicing is not the best thing because it separates some of the essence and the fibers that you need. So just keeping in mind, if you're feeling tired, if you're feeling less enthusiastic about, getting up and doing what you need to do, if you're feeling like, yeah, those are indications that you probably need a multivitamin. Okay. I like smoothies. That's what somebody said in the chat.
Now somebody asked.
So that's the time, right?
Somebody asked what brand, or what brand you suggest?
There's a brand that I like, and it's called Rainbow Light. And again, there's also superfoods that can help you. So spirulina, all your greens, spirulina, wheatgrass. I said wheatgrass. I'm sorry. Spirulina, chlorella, barley, moringa. You can get a bunch of. You might not need a multivitamin if you're taking those things, but some of these other multivitamins, like Rainbow Light, I definitely think is a good brand.
What about alfalfa? Is that one of them?
Oh yeah. Alfalfa has roots so strong that they're like one of the longest root systems. And because of that, it's taking you down into the deep, deep cores of the earth and drawing up the nutrient content from that space. And so because of that, alfalfa is definitely a staple. And so I said all of the elements. I didn't deal with fire. Fire is basically the Heru faculty, and it is associated with action and dynamic will. And so again, that just brings us back to life force and what we came here to do. And I think that is it. Hopefully that answers some questions. Or was useful, I should say.
Oh, definitely. So now I was going to ask, which ones, like for the the superfoods, which ones can you take daily, and then which ones you can take them for a certain number of days and then you have to pull back?
Really, I feel like you can take out of the ones that we named, and everybody's body is different. So that's something that you would have to kind of monitor yourself. How am I feeling as I'm taking these? And I know spirulina you can take daily. Moringa you can definitely take daily. You can take alfalfa daily, definitely. Alfalfa might be more harmonious out of all of them, to be honest. And then the other ones would just be a matter of your own personal experience. Now, if people have an autoimmune imbalance, then alfalfa and alfalfa is something that you probably want to steer away from, because it boosts you so much that it will compromise. And when you have that kind of an immune system, then you have to be careful about increasing activity.
Okay. So I did also want to ask you to share the, let me see if I can pull it up on the screen. Hold on one second. Your mineral detox, and just the information about, people, so people need to know about your process, the mineral detox that you have. I want to see which okay, maybe it's this.
Oh, you don't know.
Okay, this is Wakili's website, by the way. Detox Mineralized Club. But just let people know about, you know, what you do and your business.
Okay.
Oop, wait a minute.
Playing a little. I was getting ready to try to stop it on my screen. Also, basically, with the Detox and Mineralized Club is a renewable energy program that just helps us to get in contact with restoration in terms of using the plant and mineral kingdom, and that is also using crystals as well to renew our body system. So it helps you with the liver, restoration of the liver, lungs, the kidneys, blood system, the colon, and it's just a regimen that helps to detoxify, first fortify, and then detoxify. So a lot of times we are in a habit of doing a detox and we want to purge, but fortification is very important. I feel almost more important than detox. So that's what today I'm talking about, the very simple things we could do to restore our bodies and fortify them. And so anytime I would say just to, you know, help people who are already on a detox program or who are considering one and they may not be, which I encourage you to, I would say first start off with fortifying the body, because you have to prepare the space for you to be strong enough to go through the elimination process. So anybody who's ever done a colon cleanse understands how much it takes to participate in detox. So with that said, you want to give your body what it needs so that you can be strong enough to navigate the entire process. This one is a 21-day process, and I'll have some old dates up there because I have not done this system since last year because I was working on some other stuff, and you guys know how it is when you are a entrepreneur and you're the ideas just come so fast and I can't keep up with my website development, etc. But in lieu of what's happening right now, I'm going to put some new dates up for the Detox and Mineralized program. It's a 21-day instruction. I do also have the kits for sale. That's it's a self-guided program that you can go through on your own, but then I also offer where I kind of help you to navigate through it. Now, the $25 a month investment is one where I'm not providing the herbs. You have to go out and get them yourself, but I do give you menus and information, lots of movement activities, preparation. There's a bunch of things that are incorporated in that program.
Okay, so people can see. So it's so the website is, let me go back. So you can see the website. Oh, I'll put it in the chat room.
Oh, thank you. And I also have Reiki class coming up on April 7th, which is online. And that's going to be 6 to 9 p.m. And I'll update the website to have that information, or anybody can email me at zawadi.spa@gmail for this information. There's going to be a crystal practitioner certification class online. So right now I'm moving all of my stuff online so that people can access it during this time. The crystal practitioner, crystals and minerals practitioner course will certify you in working with crystals and minerals as a practitioner. And it is a 4-session course. And I'll put the other information up so you learn how to use crystals to bring the body to balance. So I'm also going to be doing a Reiki 2 class, which I have not put a date out for yet. But on March, oh wait a minute, what day is it? I have a on March 24th at 6 p.m. I'm going to do an information call about Reiki. So people have questions, and I'm also going to do a distant healing session free for everybody who's on the call on the 24th.
Okay, so I'll put that I'll put that link in the chat room for everybody to see. And also, hold on one second. Let me. Okay, I just wanted people to see for people who are unaware, so when you look at the AKYISAN flyer, you all can see that. Can you see that?
The website is still up.
Oh, let me see. Okay, can you see that now?
Yes.
Okay. So we just want to show, like, for people who are unaware, like when we had our second AKYISAN conference, that was the first time that Wakili spoke, and she was talking about oracle readings utilizing minerals, crystals. Yeah. So, but talking about it from the Juju perspective, which is Yoruba religion in North America. So, and Wakili comes from that Juju tradition. So we also mentioned that the term in the Medutu and the hieroglyphs, the T with the dot under it is the Ju sound sometimes. So you see Ju meaning hill or mountain, but Jui also means a mountain divinity, the mountain goddess, and Jubat is the hill of metal or a hill containing mines. So Wakili's been working, of course, in the Juju tradition, but also working with mineral life, mineral medicine. So when you see on the website, the mineral detox and herbology, but also the mineral medicine, and also utilizing divination through minerals, that Juju context goes back not just through, you know, the Yoruba tradition in Nigeria, but all the way back to ancient Kani and Kemet with the female divinity of the mountain, of the mines, and so forth. So when it was just a natural fit when we first connected. And then, you know, the whole piece with immunity today and what's going on, what you talked about, the program and so forth, it was just a perfect, you know, synergy. So we really appreciate you for your presentation. You got, everybody has the website, so you can connect with Wakili, get those products, get those crystals, get that shungite. Oh, can you mention just a little bit about what the shungite is? Because a lot of people are unaware of the shungite mineral.
Shungite is basically minerals for all of the vital organs. So they call it the bodyguard because of its dynamic ability to restore. A lot of people were using it at one time as a life force agent. And so it purifies water. So you can put inside the water the raw.
You were sounding your voice was kind of going in and out. You might have to. Which are you using a microphone on the computer or
on the computer? Can you hear me? Is that okay?
You might have to back up a little bit. I think that might make it.
Oh, is that okay?
Oh yeah, that's better.
Okay. So I don't know how much was heard, but basically it's a bodyguard. They call it a bodyguard, and it was known as a restorative life force agent because it's part of the base. And so because of that, people also use it to purify water. If you get it in a raw state, then you can put it in water and purify the water. So with that understanding, it is something good to have on deck, because if you want to always have access to pure plus charged water, because it will charge it with a bunch of minerals, then shungite is something that you want to have in your tool bag.
Okay.
And I sell shungite, of course, in the raw state, and sometimes I make jewelry with the shungite on it, but I haven't made any pieces in a while with shungite. But I make custom jewelry, so if people want something in particular, I can definitely make that for you.
Okay, you have the do you have the jewelry on the website? I know you have some of the herbs on the website, but okay. Yes, so this is, just so people know, this is the shop page on Wakili's website.
I can.
Oh, can you see it? Let me see. Can you see it now?
No.
Oh, it's not popping up?
Oh, there is some of it is. It is now.
Okay. So just so everybody knows, that this is the
web store.
Right, the store on Wakili's website. So the link, we have WakiliGreenMovement2.com. When you go to the shop section, these various minerals, you know, the goddess of the mines and the goddess of the mountain right here. She has the minerals as well. So just so everybody sees that.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I want to switch this over. All right, so just wanted people to see the spelling of what we're talking about here. Oh. Okay, so we want to get into what I wanted to share with everyone today, and it's in alignment with the information on immunity and the Ori that Wakili shared, and we really appreciate that. We want to get into the Okra, Sunsum, Adinkra, and healing. So in the Akhan tradition, and of course this is hoodoo in North America. In the Akhan language, the term undu means medicine from roots, trees, plant life. Undu also means to become heavy with the spirit through spirit possession, through spirit communication. So that Akhan term, Undu, is the same term, of course, which is the origin of the term hoodoo as it's pronounced in North America. We continued our practice of extracting medicines from roots, trees, plant life. We also become heavy with the spirit hoodoo so we can see what's taking place through divination, ritual process, and so forth, spirit possession, spirit communication. So the tradition, the Akhan tradition, became popularly known as hoodoo, just like the Yoruba tradition became popularly known as juju, and so forth. So in the Akhan tradition, just as in Yoruba, the term Ordri is the spiritual head, the divinity in the head region. In Akhan, Okra is the male version, Okraa or Okrawa is the female version of the divinity in the head region. So what we want to talk about, and we're going to get into this, pull this document up. Is this association with Adinkra symbols and healing. So there are many Adinkra symbols that we see. Let me show you one of the more popular Adinkra symbols. So in the Akhan culture, and as we see here, this is the Sankofa Adinkra symbol. So Adinkra symbols in Akhan culture are utilized to transmit information, transmit wisdom. Each one has its own name, has its own ebe or proverb associated with it, and so forth. So when people see Adinkra symbols, for example, Sankofa, the symbol in the middle, that's the Sankofa symbol, but the ebe or proverb associated with Sankofa is Sewo Werifi Nawo Sankofa Yen Chi, which means if you forget and use Sankofa, return, go, and grasp, then it is not hated, it is not rejected. So we are encouraged to return, go, and grasp. On a mundane level, Sankofa, to return, go, and grasp mentally. If you left your keys somewhere, you couldn't find your keys, you would return mentally, go and grasp, retrace your steps to see where you were earlier in the day and try to piece together what took place to lead up to this issue that's you're presented with in the present. You go back to your past, your true story, to see what unfolded, to see how you got to the point in the present and how to remedy the situation. For us, spiritually, we find ourselves in this negative condition under the control culturally to a certain extent, economically by our absolute enemies, the whites and our offspring. So we return, go and grasp to our original state, our original compact that we made with Nyamewa and Nyame, the supreme being, Aminet, and our men to see what our divine function in the world is. So Wakili was talking about who are you, why are you here, what is your function in the world? She talked about if you develop this contract with self-sacrifice and you need to go back to your ori, go back to who you are and what your function in the world is, and that way you won't, get so trapped and caught up into the campaign that they're pushing, whether it's this campaign, the coronavirus, or any other cultural campaign. They push dissexuality, homosexuality, multiculturalism, all kinds of campaigns to keep us under control. But when you go back, as she said, to your function, what your function in the world is, why are you here? In the same fashion, in the Akhan tradition, when we go Sankofa, what is our role? When we came into the world, when we were sent into the world by Nyame wa Nyame, what is our divine function? That means what aboson, what divinity were we assigned to, what matriclan and patriclan were we sent through, what energy complexes govern those matriclan and patriclans that make up our spirit body, just like you have the element from the father, the DNA from the father, and the DNA from the mother that combine to make up your unique structure. You have the matriclan abosom, abusi abosom, or the divinity that governs the matriclan and has its own unique energetic complex. The ntoro bosom, or the edja bosom, the divinity that's governed your patriclan ancestresses and ancestors for thousands of years, that animates the sperm cell and the DNA that comes from the father. the matriclan abosom, the abusi abosom, that divinity animates the ovum cell and the DNA in that ovum cell, that matriclan divinity that's governed your matriclan ancestors as an ancestor for thousands of years. So not only does the sperm and ovum unite and the DNA, the Y chromosomal DNA from the father and the mitochondrial DNA from the mother unite, but the spiritual force that animated the sperm cell, the spiritual force that animated the ovum cell, this patriclan and matriclan divinities, their energy complexes combine to make up a significant portion of who you are. But then the divinity in the head region regulates those two from the matriclan and patriclan. Just like you have DNA from your mother and from your father, and that combines to make your physical body a representation of them, and you have certain physiological characteristics that are reflective of what you've inherited from your mother and father. In the same fashion, you have certain spiritual dispositions that are inherited from the influence of the patriclan divinity and the matriclan divinity. But that is regulated by what's in the head, the divinity that governs the head. The head is the Okraa, the Krawa. So, for example, with the Sankofa symbol, we go back to our function in the world. We go back to what was seated in our Kra, the divinity in the head region by the Supreme Being, telling us what our function in the world is. We are cells within the great divine body, so what kind of cell in the great divine body were we fashioned to be? If we are immune system cells, we'll have a natural inclination towards immune system functions, and we'll engage in policing activities, security activities, martial arts activities, military activities, and so forth. If we say we're children of the renal system within the great divine body and so forth, we'll have a natural inclination towards certain modes of healing and so forth. So people are naturally inclined towards the healing arts and so forth. So depending on what kind of cell we are, that determines our divine function. So when we say Sankofa, we're returning back to that original function and then purifying ourselves so we can receive that function and execute it in the world and remove any blockages ritually that would place some kind of encumbrance upon us executing our function. So that's what the Sankofa symbol is about as far as philosophically and cosmologically. But as you can see, you see the Sankofa symbol in the gate here. This is a gate in Washington, D.C. You see the Sankofa symbol in ancient Kemet. And we're the first to show the Sankofa symbol in ancient Kemet in its proper cosmological context. This is a direct transmission from ancient Kemet, Khanit and Kemet, Nubian and Egypt and so forth, to West Africa, into the Western Hemisphere, when we were forced into the Western Hemisphere. What people are unaware of is that when you look in the gates, the wrought iron gates, the wrought iron works, whether it's gates, whether it's windows with the wrought iron symbols and so forth, on your porch, railings and so forth on various buildings. Everywhere we go, all over the United States where our people were enslaved, Akhan people left their mark in these wrought iron works to, on one hand, show this is who we are here, this is who we are. But these symbols are also part of the ancestral religious practice. In Akhan culture, these symbols are utilized on shrines. They are utilized as shrines in miniature. These geometric forms have the capacity to draw in the spirits of the abosom based on their geometric structure. They're designed to draw in specific abosom divinities, forces in nature, specific nananom unsamafo, spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors. These symbols, these Adinkra symbols, and there are hundreds of Adinkra symbols, are used as shrines, magnets for the divinities and the ancestral spirits. They're used in the same fashion as Veves are used in Vodun to draw the Vodou, the spirits of the forces in nature, into the ritual space for spiritual possession, and spirit communication. The same is used as far as Akhan people with Adinkra symbols. So when you see Adinkra symbols in the gates in different parts of, the country, what you're seeing is the hoodoo tradition having been maintained. Some people think they're just symbols with proverbs, but they're utilized to invoke deities, to evoke ancestral spirits. So that is, whenever you see those symbols, you're seeing the hoodoo tradition. Now, that's one of those symbols. In our book, of course, we show details about, Tahuti and Seshat, and why they have the title Sankofa and Sankofawa and so forth. And we also show physiologically and culturally. Here's a shrine in Ghana. You see the Adinkra symbols, Sankofa symbols with the two birds and so forth. That's in Ptah in the Asante region of Ghana, a shrine of the Abosom. You have the symbols there. The two birds, and of course the Sankofa bird itself is the same bird of wisdom of Tahuti and Seshat, the so-called Habwi bird, the so-called ibis bird, and so forth. So we go into detail about that. The male and female force of divine wisdom. And we also show that it's taking place within the sanctuary of Het Heru. So the uterine structure with the fallopian tubes and so forth, and the ovaries and so forth, that is the sanctuary of Het Heru. Het Heru is shown as the great cow divinity. The face of Het Heru with the two cows' ears and so forth, and representative of the horns and so forth. That is the Sankofa symbol. You see that same structure here. Of course, this is the cow's face. So we show that relationship there. And within this sanctuary of Het Heru, within the Sankofa symbol, within that symbol, of course, these ancient, sacred feminine divinity statues and so forth. But within that structure, you have the two birds inside the structure grabbing the egg and so forth. The Sankofa bird reaches back to grab the egg, and you have that symbol. So that's what we show in that particular book. But to get back to, so Sankofa is a popular symbol, and it's critical for everything that we're doing. However, there are many symbols. There are hundreds of symbols. One of the symbols is Sunsum. This is another Adinkra symbol. The term for Sunsum is the term for spirit in the Akhan language. And then you have the term, of course, Okraa. Okraa is the term for soul, divine consciousness, the divinity in the head region. So this is an Okraa Konmuade. That is a golden emblem. The symbol is the same symbol, but they, the Odwirafo, or the soul washers of the king, the Oheni, or the queen mother, and so forth. Sometimes they'll have a golden version of that symbol, and they wear it around their neck and so forth. But the key is the symbol itself. This one just happens to be a gold version, but this is the same symbol down here. The key is the symbol itself. So you have the symbol for the Kra, which is this fourfold division. And then you have the symbol for the Sunsum, and you have the fourfold division inside the symbol for the Sunsum. So you have the Sunsum, which is the spirit body. The Okraa, this fourfold division, is inside of the spirit body. In the same fashion, you have a spirit body, you have a physical body, and then you have your brain, which regulates order within your physical body. You have a spirit body, and in the head region of your spirit body is the Krawa, the soul, the orderee, the divine consciousness, the divinity in the head region that regulates order within the spirit body. So, as far as the ideogram, we have the Sunsum, which is representative of the spirit body, and you have the Kra, which is inside that. It's a combination in the true sense. This is the Kra symbol itself. And then you have the Oheni and Niwa, which is in reality basically a combination of those two, of the Sunsum and the Okraa, in one symbol. So Oheni means king, and Niwa means eyes. So they say the eyes of the king. The eyes of the king are all around, meaning the king is all seeing. The king, there's also the proverb Oheni Ye Oria, which means the king is the sun. Just like the sunship or the solar kingship and queenship of ancient Kandid and Kemet, the sun is in the center, radiating energy and so forth. So the eyes of the king have to do with the, the solar the energy that permeates all of the entire solar system. We're all dependent on that energy and so forth, is all powerful and so forth with respect to us. So this Ohini and Niwa symbol, the eyes of the king, like the different phases of the sun that can move all the way around the entire structure, the infinite structure and so forth, the all-seeing eyes or vision of the king. The Okraa has to do with sovereignty, but on an individual level, it's talking about the sovereignty of the self. So you have the spirit body, your unique structure, just like your physical body is unique. Nobody has a body specifically like yours, but you have a spirit body which is unique to you. You also have a Okraa, soul, a divine consciousness, a spiritual brain, and within that spiritual brain is the divine function you came to execute. Just like in your physical brain, the blueprint of everything that should happen in your body is wired within the physical brain. In the spirit brain or the spiritual head, your divine function, how you are to operate in the world, what kind of cell in the great divine body you are, how you need to execute your function, that is all wired within the Okraa, the Odwirafo, and so forth. So you have the spirit body, and then you have the Okraa central within the spirit body. You have the spirit body, and you have the Okraa on the inside, and the all-seeing eyes around the, the symbol. So this is an actual cosmogram for Akhan people, the Sunsum and the Okraa combined. We've always had our own cosmogram. Some people are aware of the cosmogram of the Bakongo people, but we've always had the similar thing. So here's another representation of Sunsum. You also have the Abine symbol, which is the symbol of government in Akhan. And then you have, once again, that same symbol of government, that cross structure within the circle, within the Okraa symbol. And once again, you have the government symbol, the symbol of government, not just regulation of the nation, but also on an individual level, the government of yourself, self-governance. When you attune to your Okraa, the divinity in the head region, you align with the things that you're supposed to do, what your function in the world is. When you start moving and you're about to engage in behavior, thoughts, intentions, and actions that are out of harmony with what's in the head, your Okraa will pull you in one direction, you're trying to go in the other direction, and there's a disalignment. So you seek to align every thought, every intention, and every action, every moment of every day with the divine force that's in the head region, the Okraa. So, and that's what spirituality is about. If the Supreme Being, the Great Mother and Great Father, Nyame wa Nyame, has wired within your head the specific function you're to execute in the body, the great divine body, just like they've wired, those instructions into every cell within the body, and those cells should operate according to those instructions. If they get off track, then there's an immune and lymphatic system and other systems to help heal the cell, or if it's gone beyond, becomes cancerous, then the cell is killed. But if that's the case in the body, of course, the same thing happens with us. The Supreme Being gives us a function to execute, the energy complex in order to execute that function, and the capacity to engage behavior that regulates that function. If we get off track, we engage the ritual process, ancestral religion, the ritual incorporation of divine law, and the ritual restoration of divine balance to get back on track. That's what spirituality is. So we want to look at this notion of shrines. We posted this a while back. Akhan Adinkra symbols compared to sound vibrations captured via cymatics. So cymatics is just a field wherein they're utilizing, in this case, water, and they use the notes from a piano. When they play the notes and the sound vibration radiates through the water, then they capture the image of those vibrations, with the camera and so forth, and replicate that. That's what cymatics is. So for example, you see D1 sharp, when that note is played, just like if you drop a stone in some water and there's an equal distribution of waves that emanate from the center, and you have a circular structure that emanates from the center after you drop the stone in the water. If you look at snowflakes, all of them have their own geometric pattern. If you play the note D1 sharp, and it's, the sound vibrations affect water, it generates a specific geometric pattern. And when that geometric pattern is captured by camera, this is what manifests. If you look internally, this is the same Adinkra symbol that you see here. If they play the note E1, you see the two symbols here, the two symbols here, the two symbols here, the two symbols here. So you see Nyame Juya, you see E1 generates the Nyame Juya structure. F1 generates the Anansi Ntontine Adinkra symbol. And as you can see, as you go down the line, F1 sharp generates the Adinkra symbol. You have G1, the Dame Dame symbol. You have G1 sharp, which is one of the forms of Adinkra Heni. The Nsaroma symbol, the star symbol, you see C1 sharp generates that symbol in the center and so forth. And then you have D1, which generates the Ohini Eniwa symbol. And you can see the circular symbol with the 4 pieces here, the 4 eyes, the 8 eyes around the circle here. So when in our Akhan tradition, we say that Adinkra symbols are shrines in miniature, meaning they're shrines for Abosom. The Abosom are the forces in nature. They have their own energy complex that radiates a specific configuration of sound vibrations. When you look at the Adinkra symbols, through sound vibrations, they are replicated through sound vibrations, meaning we have the capacity to attune spiritually to see the different sound vibrations that manifest when deities move through creation. When you have fast-moving deities, they generate a higher pitched sound, or a slow-moving energy through space, generating a lower pitched sound and so forth. With those different sounds, just like if you pluck a string and so forth, you pull a string taut, like with a guitar string or even a rubber band, you'll generate certain sound vibrations depending on the length of the string and how taut the string is. When you have spiritual energy moving, expanding, and contracting through space, the movement, its expansion and contraction, and its velocity generates a specific configuration of sound vibrations, as well as specific geometric forms, as well as certain colors. So sound, form, and color are manifest based on the movement of the divinities through space. That is proven here with cymatics. It just corroborates what we already knew. When certain energies, certain sound vibrations move through space, they generate a specific geometric pattern. When we replicate that geometric pattern in the form of Adinkra symbols and invest our spiritual energy into it by projecting it through ritual, we stimulate that geometric pattern, and it becomes a magnet for the divinity that resonates at that same frequency that generates that pattern in nature. So we're directed by an abosom to draw out or structure that Adinkra symbol. It's resonating specifically at the frequency of a specific abosom. That abosom takes up residence in that form temporarily to communicate with us during ritual, whether it's drawn on the floor of the shrine or on the table at a shrine, or worn on clothing and so forth, or drawn with powder and so forth. You create that vortex resonating at the frequency of the divinity and draw that spirit in. And once that spirit comes in to possess, then healing takes place, recalibration takes place, whether it's physical healing because there's a physical imbalance, or a spiritual healing where there's spiritual disalignment. Many of our people have physical illnesses, and sometimes those physical symptoms mirror or even kind of cloak certain things. As Wakili was talking about, sometimes people will have a mineral deficiency or vitamin deficiency, but it replicates certain symptoms that we associate, for example, with depression. Some people have the quote unquote symptoms of depression, but in reality, they're simply B vitamin deficient. And if they have, taken the proper amount of B vitamins, then what they thought were symptoms of depression are ameliorated instantly because they never had depression. In reality, they were deficient, and their body made them feel in the same, similar fashion as, someone who's going through depression. So sometimes we have these mineral, vitamin, imbalances, and that's critical. That's one aspect of our health that's critical, the physical side, but then the spiritual side, sometimes people do have actual depression that's based on a discarnate spirit of a relative or non-relative putting pressure on the people. They're depressing and so forth, pressuring people, and people feel that pressure and they don't know how to handle that pressure. And they're going to talk to people and things like that, or taking medication for depression. But what really needs to be done is to, number one, remove that spirit from the space, so they're no longer putting that pressure on you and it's lifted. But then secondly, fortifying yourself spiritually, so you're no longer a magnet, or you're no longer porous, as Wakili was saying, allowing those kinds of spirits to impact you, attach themselves to you, and have some influence over. So we engage the ritual process for that. So we want to show that these Adinkra symbols are not just symbols, they are matrices, they are shrines in miniature to draw the Abosom and Nsamafo forward. In the Hoodoo tradition, when you see these symbols on gates, first of all, that's not just Akhan symbolism, that's Hoodoo. So when people would see that, you know, they go into some old relic of a slave house and they see, you know, quilts and things like that with these symbols on them, they would say, well, these are just African-American slave quilts, African-American slave symbols, or some of them would say hoodoo symbols or something like that. These were actually us recreating ritually the capacity to draw in the Abosom, draw in the Nsamafo to communicate with them directly. Now, but we want to get into the symbolism and the cyclical nature of that symbolism. So, if you have, for example, this is the Bakongo Dekinga symbol that people are kind of familiar with. In the Bakongo tradition, they have this Dekinga symbol. It shows the 4 different positions of the sun. It's the cycle of life, and everything goes through that cycle of life, and all of creation can you know, be defined through that cyclical nature of the movement of the sun and so forth, and that infinite cycle. Well, when you look at that structure, you'll find also in the Opon Ifa, in the Yoruba tradition, the Opon Ifa, this is a divination tray, they typically divide it into quadrants, and the Opon Ifa represents everything that can happen within creation. This is where the Yerosun, or the divination powder, is placed, and lines are made and so forth when someone is engaged in the divination process in the Yoruba tradition. So they have a circular structure, it's divided into quadrants ritually, and it represents the whole of creation and everything that can possibly take place within creation. These are derived from this. This is the circular zodiac of Dendera in ancient Khanid and Kemet. And that circular zodiac with the divinities around the circle and the different divinities and animal totems inside the circle represents the whole of creation and everything that can take place within creation. So we've had these circular cosmograms that represent everything that can take place within creation, the cyclical nature of the unfolding of events in creation. We can see where we are in that cycle. And if there are issues, these, for example, somebody can see if there's an issue here where the solar energy is moving in a certain direction, they have a certain kind of illness. Do they have a fiery illness, or a deficiency in fire, a deficiency in the air element, or deficiency in the earth element, or a deficiency in the water element, and so forth? All these different things can be, you know, defined through these cosmograms. But it's actually the same within the Okraa, the soul, and the Ohini Eniwa symbol in the Akhan tradition. We've always had our own cosmogram. And they come ultimately from this ancient symbol, the Nut symbol in ancient Kemet. That Nut symbol represents any seat of government. So when you see that in the hieroglyphs, you see the Nut symbol, that represents a seat of government, a nation, a town, a polity, or the spirit realm. It references, so when it means the spirit realm itself, the whole of the spirit realm, just as you see in the Zodiac of Dendera, just as you see the whole of spirit, the spirit realm of creation in the Opon Ifa, the whole of creation in the Dekenga, the Ohini Eniwa, the eyes of the king see the entire nation, or the entire cosmos and so forth. all seeing eyes, everything that can possibly happen or take place within this infinite circular structure, we have the same representation. So on a mundane level, this represents the entirety of the entire nation, the seat of government, the nation, the town, the polity, or the entirety of the spirit realm. And you see that same symbol representing sometimes a city in the spirit realm, and says, the newt symbol shows this is the region or the spirit realm itself, and the newt symbol identifying the fact that this is the entirety of the spirit realm, and everything that can possibly take place, we can find it within some aspect of that symbol, the cycle of that symbol. But on an individual level, it represents self-governance. Anything that can take place within the body or the spirit body within our lives can be found within that circle. And if we know where we are in the circle or the cycle, then we can make the proper adjustments spiritually. So we have that similar cycle. And from an Akhan perspective, we utilize this symbol. We call it the Per Ankh Nut. Just as in the Bakongo tradition, they have, the 4 points of the sun and so forth. They have different color symbolism, yellow, black, red, and white, based on their cosmology and so forth. In the Akhan tradition, we have the Okra Konwade symbol, and also the union of the Sunsum and the Okra, which is the Ohini and Niwa. And of course, this, the summer solstice, the winter solstice, the spring equinox, the autumn equinox, and so forth. And then you have those midpoints. Between the solstice and the equinox is 90 days. That midpoint is around 40 days. This is why in Akhan culture, every 42 days every 6 weeks is an ancestral celebration. So you have ancestral observance and Adai observance. Then 6 weeks later, you have the next Adai observance. Then 6 weeks after that. So every 6 weeks, every 42 days and so forth. Today, as a matter of fact, is Awusi Adai or Kwesi Adai. This is a sacred ancestral observance in Akhan culture. The next one will take place 6 weeks from then. In our calendar, we have the solstices and the equinoxes, and in between that 90-day period, you have that, halfway in between is 45 days. It's around that 42-day cycle in Akhan tradition. So we have that every 40 plus days, we have that sacred cycle. This is where they get the whole notion of, in so-called Wicca and so forth, they have the solstices and equinoxes, and then they have the midpoints like, Samhain and Beltane and all of that. In between, that's taken from our ancient symbol. When you look in Buddhism, you'll see the wheel of Dharma, the Dharma, Okraa, and so forth, and it looks like this. That comes from our ancient culture. You'll find that these Sunsum, these symbols, these Adinkra symbols are found, the root symbols are found in the Medutu and ancient Kemet and so forth. That includes many of these symbols. This Adinkra Ahini symbol, the concentric circles you'll find in ancient Kemet as the symbol for Ra, as well as Riot and so forth. You'll find various symbols of the Adinkra in the Medutu of Kemet. So when it shows up in Buddhism, thousands of years later, we already were utilizing these symbols, and we continue to use them. When we migrated from Kemet, went to West Akura, reestablished the Akhana Empire, and continue to use these symbols. So, but as you can see, they're copied from quote unquote nature. The natural manifestation of sound vibrations that replicate these or manifest these symbols, and we replicate them through artistry and so forth, but we utilize them ritually to bring in the same force in creation that generates the D1 sound vibration that generates this pattern in creation, and we replicate that. That same force will be drawn ritually into the ritual space for spirit possession, spirit communication. So we get our symbols from the divinities as they manifest in creation, and we continue to use them. So when you see this symbol, and you see it in Buddhism as the Dharma Okraa, that's coming from our culture thousands of years prior. So here's the piece. So we continue to use the symbol, but in our Akhan tradition, we have a different schematic. This is the Okra Konwade. This is the Okra symbol. And on the outside is the Sunsum. In Akhan, the term for red is kaka. The term for yellow is bofua, and also akoko sorade. The word for black is tuntum. The word for white is fufuo. And these are the four major ritual cultures in Akhan tradition. And that's passed over into the Hoodoo tradition. So you have certain, ritual colors, even manifestation of the energy within the body and so forth. You have dark brown people with red undertones, dark brown people with black undertones. You have dark brown people who are a little bit lighter and they have the yellowish undertones and so forth. And then we even have the people in our community who are albinos and so forth. They're still Afro-Akani people, but they still have that, that condition on the outside and so forth. So that shows up within our population. Having nothing to do with mixture from the whites and their offspring, we have these four different colors, even within the energetic expression that manifests in the phenotype of the people. You have, for example, in the Oyoko clan, the Oyoko Kaka, the red Oyoko people, the Oyoko Tuntum, the black Oyoko people. It's not because some of them mixed with the whites and their offspring. It's talking about the energetic temperament connected to certain divinities, certain fire divinities, generating that hot, fiery red energy that manifests within the phenotype of the people, or some cooler energy that manifests as black and so forth, the black undertones manifesting within the phenotype of the people. The fufuo, which is white in Akhan, koko, which is red in Akhan, akoko sorade or bofua, which is yellow in Akhan, and inclusive of gold as well, sika, and black, tuntum, in Akhan. These are the major ritual colors in the Akhan tradition. But they find expression, of course, in the Akhan tradition in North America, which is the Hoodoo tradition. So the Okomfo, or the Komfo man, or Komfo woman, the Komfo doctor, and so forth, became known as the Kofo doctor, and the Gofo doctor, and the Gofa doctor that uses the Gofa dust in the Hoodoo tradition. People don't know where the term Gofa comes from and so forth. Some will say Gufa or Gofa, but that's Gofo, Komfo, and Kumfo, different pronunciations. You'll find some say Okumfo, that is a class of priests and priestesses in Akhan. Some pronounce it Okumfo or Okumfwa in the Asante dialect, Okumfwa, with the diphthong and the Akwamu dialect, Okumfo, and so forth. So Okumfwa or Okomfwa, that became Gofwa, Gofa, or Gufa in the Hoodoo tradition. The Gufa doctor with the Gufa dust. Some people just say, well, it's graveyard dust, or it's rattlesnake head dust, or it's, camwood dust or brick dust and so forth, various kinds of dust. But you'll notice when they're talking about these various kinds of dust, it goes back to the sacred Akhan ritual colors. It goes back to koko, red, bofua, yellow, tuntum, black, or fufuo, which is white. And these different colors have different effects upon our spirit body, but also physiologically for healing. This notion of color therapy, certain colors utilized to realign the spirit body and so forth. When deities possess, they have their own specific colors, sacred colors and so forth. They generate that kind of energy. We are imbued with that energy, and that allows us to realign ourselves if we're out of harmony with order, but also physically. So if you look at a chart here, on the mineral side, ritually, you will see that people use black charcoal. They'll put the black powder on the face when someone's possessed to show what specific kind of divinity or ancestral spirit has come forth that carries that kind of energy. There's yellow ochre that is used and so forth, put on the face and so forth, red ochre, as well as white kaolin, which is white chalk, white powder put on the face and so forth. But these are also used medicinally for healing, externally as well as internally, based on the energetic projection, vibration of that substance, of that mineral substance. You'll find that red ochre and yellow ochre is used for anti-inflammatories and things like that, a number of different things. We can even look at as a matter of fact, just to give an example of that before we go forward. Okay, just so you can see, well, the reason why we utilize these ochres and so forth in hoodoo for ritual healing, as well as physical healing. So it says, in ancient Kemet, red was an easy color to obtain in ancient Egypt, as naturally red minerals or clays were abundant. In fact, they were already used as pigments for painting in prehistoric times. You'll see sometimes the red color skin of the individual, or the yellow color and so forth, that has to do with that red and yellow ochre, the red setting sun, the yellow rising sun and so forth, the red bone marrow, yellow bone marrow and so forth. Now, of the earth pigments, as they're often called, ochre was used for red coloring like others. It is an iron oxide, but gets its red shade from a mineral hematite, which can be naturally present in varying quantities. Another way of obtaining the pigment is by heating the more common yellow clay to produce what is called burnt ochre. Now, they'll say in ancient Egyptian painting, we find the red color often used to distinguish gender, as men's skin was often painted red. We can see an example of that in this painting, Wooden Stela from the Petrie Museum, just so we can have a proper understanding of that notion. We have in one of our publications that will be released in a collection. Because they would try to say that you know, they were showing red and yellow because, you know, the women were light skinned and we were marrying light skinned women from other places and all of this other nonsense. It has to do with the red setting sun, the yellow rising sun, expansive and contractive energy. We have red and yellow bone marrow and so forth. For people who are unaware of that piece, hold on a second. Okay, so as we can see here, let me make sure you can see that. We're talking about Abdana, who is Sekhmet in ancient Canadian Kemet. She governs the lymphatic system. She's called Abdana and Akhan. The lymphatic system includes the bone marrow, spleen, thymus, and lymph nodes and vessels. Bone marrow is a major lymphoid organ of the system, along with thymus. The two types of bone marrow are red and yellow. Yellow bone marrow produces fat, cartilage, bone, and some white blood cells. Red bone marrow gives rise to red blood cells, platelets, and most white blood cells. Red blood cells carry oxygen and thus fire, life force from the lungs throughout the body. White blood cells attack viruses, bacteria, and other foreign microorganisms. So when you talk about the fat and the cartilage, dealing with that nurturing aspect, that's the yellow bone marrow. The red bone marrow is carrying the fire and so forth in that context. So then you see the relationship between the yellow bone marrow, which is the feminine aspect, and the red bone marrow, which is the masculine in that context. And let me just pull that up right quick. We just have a specific image we want to show. Give me 1 second. Okay, so it should be right here. So whether you see in ancient Khanate Nubia, the red and the yellow representation for males and females, you also see it in Kemet. So what they're showing is the red bone marrow, the yellow bone marrow dealing with the masculine and feminine and so forth. This is what's being talked about in the Ebers papyrus. Now, or in the various representations. It says, less obviously, red ochre was also popular in cosmetics such as rouge and lip color. In fact, those pigments are still found. But the key is the Ebers papyrus is one of the oldest and most important medical texts. Hold on one second. Okay, so one of the oldest and most important medical texts from ancient Kemet prescribes ochre clays as a cure for any intestinal or eye problems. So, and then they talk about red dyes and so forth, and a number of different things that they use that for. But for intestinal, for a cure for any intestinal problems, eye problems, and so forth. So this notion of the Gufa doctor utilizing the gopher dust and so forth in the Akhan tradition in North America. When you see, if you Google, go on YouTube and see Akhan priests and priestesses, Okomfo being possessed in Ghana and so forth, Ivory Coast, you see them putting white powder on, or sometimes gold dust or red ochre or black, charcoal on the face and so forth. But then also these same minerals used for ritual medicine. And then we come to the hoodoo tradition and the gopher doctor with the gopher dust, which is the komfo doctor and the komfa dust and so forth, utilizing these different minerals for healing internally, but also externally. Talked about the red ochre, yellow ochre used for intestinal problems and so forth, eye problems. You'll find that women would use true white chalk. They'll call it geophagi, or consuming white chalk or clay and so forth, very often when they're pregnant, because it assists them, in that process. We're also using charcoal internally for a number of different ailments and so forth. So we use it internally, but also externally. Internally for, physiological issues to bring balance. Externally to draw the energy of the abosom that govern that aspect of creation to us. Same thing you'll see with, this is actually the way black pepper looks. Then you have the yellow color, which is the sulfur, which is fiery, utilized in ritual and so forth, and talismans and to do work and so forth. The red pepper, white salt, and people know about white salt, utilizing it to repel certain negative spirits and so forth. Salt around the floor, corners of the house, around the baseboards and things like that, or on the porch, different things like that. So we're utilizing these colors, whether it's dealing with the mineral life or different aspects of the mineral life. The same thing with plant life as well. We show here the 4 sons of Heru with these different color schemes. Okay, so, but it all fits within this context. Oh, make sure your mic is off. All right, but it all fits within this context, within this cycle of life. So this is the Sunsum symbol in our Akhan tradition, the spirit body, and within that is the Okraa, the 4-fold division, and within the Okraa, you have the different 4 cycles of the sun. The sunrise, which is akin to the spring equinox, which just took place, the balancing point. You have the summer solstice, which is around June 20th, the highest point in the sky, the hottest, fieriest time of the year and so forth, the longest day of the year, that red energy. Then you have the sunset, the evening point, 12 hours of darkness, 12 hours of light. That's the evening point, but it's also akin to the fall equinox. That's around the time that we have at the time we have our New Year observance and so forth. It's the end of the warm cycle, the harvest time, but also the seeding time, the beginning of that new cycle and so forth. And then you have the winter solstice or midnight, where the roots go deep down and so forth, begin to draw from the darkness, the blackness, the deep primordial root energy of being, so that eventually the sprouts can come up. So we have that cycle of life, but then we also have that color scheme that's associated with that cycle of life, all within the Sunsum symbol, the Adinkra symbol, and the Okra symbol, that Ohini Emiwa, combining both of them. And the final piece we want to touch on with regard to that and then we'll take some questions, but just one other piece with regard to that. Oh, actually, that might be the wrong one. Okay, so in our book, Ojirama and Afashe, we talk about that. We talk about the symbol. We talk about that cycle of life of, the seeding, germination, rooting, sprouting, of full flowering and harvesting and so forth. But we can associate that with every aspect of life, our behavioral cycle with every aspect of life, how things unfold. And this is directly related to the healing, our capacity for healing. So first and foremost, when you see the symbol once again, and then the color coding that we have associated with that is contact. When the sun sets, that's akin to a seed being planted in the ground. So when the sun sets, that's the end of the day. That's the autumn equinox, that's the harvest time, but then the disc is going underground, so that's akin to a seeding and so forth. That's where we have our New Year's Day at the autumn equinox. Then the black phase is the germination and rooting. The yellow phase is the sprouting at the spring equinox. The full flowering is at the summer solstice. Then the harvesting and seeding returns at the white circle and so forth. So we say when we come in contact with an entity, engage an issue, hear a dilemma, witness an act or event, this contact, engagement, hearing, witnessing is akin to the planting or embedding of a seed into Asase Afua, the Earth Mother. The unfolding of our behavior begins with our perceiving the entity, deed, issue, event through our sensory organs. Our sensory organs, taste, touch, smell, sight, hearing, balance, time, because we have 7 senses and so forth. The sense of balance and time are the other 2. But you also have spiritual senses. You can see, but you also have clairvoyance, seeing beyond physical, seeing spirits and so forth. Clairaudience, you can hear beyond the physical, hear the spirits speaking. Clairalience, you can smell, have the sense of a spirit moves through the area. That scent you can pick up on and so forth, and you can distinguish what kind of spirit is in the vicinity based on that clairalience, that sense of smell. Clairgustance, that sense of taste. Clairequilibrance, as we call it, which is your sense of balance shifts when spirits move through the ritual space. Or clairtemience is sense of time is shifted when the spirit moves through the space. So we have 7 physical senses, but also the same 7 spiritual senses on a heightened level. So whenever we have an experience, someone says something, sound vibrations entering into us, those sound vibrations affect us. Or we see something, those images affect us. Or when we, feel something, smell something, whatever thing that happens when we engage life, The things that enter into our awareness is akin to a seed being planted. That's the contact we receive through the physical and spiritual senses. Once the issue has embedded itself in us, the experience has embedded itself within us, it can affect us physically. But it's into our awareness, our senses are stimulated. The seed issue is a matrix of energy which germinates, developing roots which delve below the surface of our external awareness, deep into the roots of our consciousness to connect with the root energy of our being, igniting thoughts and intentions about whatever happened. So you see something, you hear something, you feel something, it goes into your awareness and starts stimulating the energy, the deep energy within you, and starts stimulating certain thoughts and intentions based on what you've experienced. If it goes deep enough and you allow the experience to go deep enough, you'll stimulate thoughts and intentions from your root energy of being that are in harmony with order. If you allow the experience to go shallow, you just stimulate little conditionings or beliefs that you have, and that gets stimulated and you get worked up based on triggers and things like that. But if you go deep enough, it touches the root energy of your being, and the kinds of thoughts and intentions that are manifest from that stimulation has a different effect. So once you have that experience as the contact, then the germination, the rooting, then the first expression of what has been stimulated within you through the germinating process is the sprouting, which is the energetic response. You have an emotional reaction. There's a release of energy, whether it's a fiery release, exhilaration, or sad release, or, indifferent and so forth. You have an energetic response that is the sprouting. The energetic response is reflecting the value associated with the thoughts. You may manifest anger, hurt, joy, exhilaration, fear, attraction, repulsion, and so forth. The seed has sprouted. And then the next is an emotional reaction. Then the next phase is the full flowering of that response, which is the actual actions that are motivated by the emotional energy. So then you act and do something based on what you experienced. And then the final stage is the harvesting, the seeding of the unfolding of behavior. Whatever you acted, you're going to receive or harvest or reap what you sow based on what you've done in response. So our behavior is unfolding in that fashion. That entire cycle governs every aspect of life. Every time we have an experience, it's seeded within us, it germinates, it stimulates certain thoughts, intentions, and actions. There's a response, an emotional response. Then there's a physical action that follows that emotional response, and then there's a harvesting or a harvesting of what, the results or the consequences of what we engaged in, and then that affects other people as well. So when it has to do with, whether it has to do with health, certain things that we take into our system, how it's, affects us and so forth, you can find out what phase of the cycle you're in based on that cycle, based on the, the color coding of the different phase of the cycle that you're in. Sometimes people become, for example, polarized in this cycle here, that red fiery energy, they get polarized in that area. And they want to operate based on being polarized in that fired up, most expansive, fired up energy. And then that can cause problems in their relationships or, communally or whatever. Sometimes people get polarized in the deep, dark, germinating, rooted phase and so forth. And they cut off from everything and everybody, and they're just going internally, and they just want to turn off from their entire lives and so forth and become, totally 100% polarized in introversion. Then you have some people who want to always constantly express and pull and, connect with people and so forth, but they become polarized in that area. They don't continue to grow and develop and have their own, focus and their own actions and so forth. They're constantly being, pulled in different directions and trying to connect with everybody and everything at every time, and they don't have their own focus and so forth. So you can be polarized in different areas. Even physiologically, there could be an area in the red energy and the organs associated with the red energy. You do divination, see what the issue is. It may manifest that there's a deficiency here, and you get some red fruit or red mineral or, red plant and so forth to bring balance in that area. Or if there's a deficiency in that region and that aspect of life and so forth, then the yellow plant life, yellow mineral, even the animal totems associated with the color and so forth, stimulating you on a certain level and so forth. So no matter what it is, this cycle governs every aspect of life. But it's a representation of the Adinkra symbols, the Sunsum and Okraa Adinkra symbol combined, the Ohini and Niwa, which is the cosmogram for Akhan people, but those Akhan cosmograms continue to be used in the Hoodoo tradition in North America. We've always utilized those symbols. We still utilize them today. So when people come to us for divination, for example, Adebisa, sometimes the Abosom and Nsamafo will utilize Adinkra symbols for us to share with the querent, the client, in the context of the divination, to bring home a specific point or show them what Abosom or what ancestral spirit or class of ancestral spirits needs to be connected with to bring balance to a specific situation. So we've always utilized these symbols. It's directly related to healing. And that is the information we wanted to share on that topic. Okay. So if you have any questions, of course, let me know. If you have any, you can type something in the chat room, or you can unmic yourself if you have a question or a comment. You can do that. About this subject, or anything else we've touched on that you had some question about previously that you didn't have a chance to ask about. Let me see. Okay. Okay, so if there are no questions, well, actually, so we can just go ahead and end it here. We appreciate everybody for joining in with this online version of the AKYISAN conference. Typically, our conferences have, we have an event space we rent for the entire day. We have vendors all day long. We have different presenters and so forth. But we definitely, things were shut down in Washington, D.C., just like, the various other cities and so forth. So we wanted to, maintain this, that we weren't going to not have a conference. We wanted to maintain the energy and so forth. Things will start to level out. We're going to have our Odwirafo Nation Building Conference, which we have that around the summer solstice. So this one is at around the spring equinox. We have Odwirafo Afashe, thing with nation building, nationism, the purification of nationalism, nation building rooted in ancestral religious values. That's around the summer solstice. At the autumn equinox is our New Year's observance. We have a 7-day New Year observance, and on September 22nd or the 23rd, depending on what day the equinox is, that is our New Year's Day. So we have, that event. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to plan for the Odwirafo Afashe, the nation building conference on, around June 20th. In fact, it should be that particular weekend. It would be the June 20th, June 21st weekend. Now, if things are still shut down, of course, we will have a, online piece, but I think by that time things will have, the little campaign will start settling down. They would have been trying to get everybody to take this vaccine and so forth, which they've been pushing. They've squeezed the vice tight enough to make people hysterical. Then they release the vice a little bit to make people believe that they've made some progress. Then in a couple of years, they'll squeeze it again with the economy, or squeeze it again with something else, with a war, or squeeze it again, and people get up in arms, and then they'll loosen the grip, and you feel like you've, made some progress. As long as they're doing that, they can maintain fear and angst and consternation within the population on a chronic level. So they'll never think about, overthrowing the people who are in control. So this has been their mode. We don't need to, play into that, as Wakili was talking about. We need to have our own approach, and this is why we have our Ojidamana Fascia Nation Building Conference. So that'll be coming up. And we also, just so you can see, let me pull this up right quick. So one thing that we are doing with coming up, this is our page, and this will be coming up on November 7th. We're having our first annual Kanche Conjure Film Festival. So many of you know we released our film over a year ago. We just won the award for Best Original Documentary. So once we did that, that was in January in New York at the Kwanzaa Film Festival. We were also in Los Angeles at the Pembroke Taparelli Art and Film Festival back in November. So we're gonna have our own film festival. It's good to get accepted in other people's film festivals. We're gonna have our own film festival. It's gonna be a yearly event. The Conjure Film Festival, Kanche is the Akhan term for conjure, to utter incantations to bring the spirits forward. It's the same term, Kanche in ancient Khanate Kemet, meaning the same thing. The films that will be screened are new films from new filmmakers. We're asking for submissions, whether they're film shorts or feature films, but they're in the genre that we're creating, the conjure film genre. So dealing with hoodoo, juju, wanga, grigri, gala, geechee, and gangan, voodoo, and so forth. The traditions that we preserved in our blood circles in North America, those are the kinds of films that we will be showcasing, similar to our film, Amado Kafo Adibisa, African American Ancestral Divination. So this is the page. We talk about the festival. We talk about, conjure defined and so forth, what the festival is about. So you can go to that page. I'll put the link in the chat room, kanchefilms.com. So we're gonna have that. You can also, we have this section for sponsors and partners. If you would like to advertise your business on our webpage, we're gonna have, on our regular page, we have Odwirafo.com, we have on average 2.5 million hits per year on that website. We've connected this website, the Kanche Film Festival, to our regular website. So if you'd like to be a sponsor for the film, you can do so. You'll see that on the page. Your logo for your business will be in that section for the various sponsors for the films. We don't have huge corporate sponsors. The kind of sponsors and partners we want to have are those people who, have Afro-Kani businesses, organizations, and institutions. And so all that information is on the page as well, so you can do that. And as you scroll down under the article that says Conjure Defined, you'll see we have a crowdfund, but then you also have a piece where you can showcase your business. And the section here is for sponsors and partners. Okay, hold on one second. All right. So we want to have as many, Black businesses as possible to sponsor. That helps us with the production of our second film that we're working on, as well as to put on the, the festival. It's going to be an all-day event. Our plan is to showcase 10 to 12 films. So when you come out to the Kanche Conjure Film Festival on November 7th, there'll be events all day long, film screenings all day long. You can come and pick which films you want to see, or you may want to see all of the films and so forth. We'll have, the filmmakers, discussing their film. I'll talk back after each film and so forth, so they can talk about, the film and how they came to produce it and so forth. So it's going to be a big event, and we're going to have this every year. And that leads to entrepreneurial as well as employment opportunities for people in the community. So this is what we're doing. And we have a crowdfund effort. So if you'd like to support that crowdfund effort, please do. Okay. Okay, yeah, so we sent in the chat room. Oh, may I say for that comment. And yes, we also have, for the person who asked, we do have divination available, so you can reach out on our website. And we posted, so if you see on our page, we have the Hoodoo Jase Dine page. And let me put this link in the chat room right quick for everybody to see. So that's one link in the chat room there for the film festival page that we just showed you. You also see in the chat room Wakili's page for her website. And you'll also see here, this is our, so our Hoodoo Jase Dine page, it says the Hearth Shrine of Akhan Ancestral Religion in North America. So this is our Hoodoo shrine page or temple page. We have Hoodoo Jase Dine is our Hoodoo shrine or a temple in North America. So it talks about, you know, our shrine house and so forth. But at the end of the page, it talks about what Hoodoo Jase Dine actually means and all of that. We'll be having our 6th annual Hoodoo Mind Hoodoo Nation Festival coming up in October as well. But you'll see our sister Afia Nkoso Bretuo, who's an Asumainfo. She does divination. Within the context, she's one of the members of Hoodoo Jase Dine. And then you'll see myself as well. So that section is talking about Adibisa or divination. So you can reach out to either one of us for divination. You can also reach out to Wakili for divination as well on her website as well. So so that's the information for that. Okay, so just want to check the chat room right quick before we end. Okay, so I want to say Yedase to Wakili for presenting once again. Yedase for everyone who, you know, attended. We're gonna post the link. Oh, there she is. We're gonna post the link. We're gonna save it and post it. We'll upload it to our Vimeo site, so you know you can download this, you know, entire broadcast and check it out whenever you need to. So, Yedase everybody for tuning in, and Yebeshiabio. If you want to say anything before we go, Wakili.
Not really, just thank you for being here, and until next time.
Okay, so Yedase, thanks everyone for tuning in, and Yebeshiabio. We will meet again.